Hey, you got the Captain Fuzzy here, and I've had a couple of requests on Steam to do a video showing some basic animation, how to do some basic stuff. So I'm putting this together to kind of give new people, somebody that's new to animation, a basic idea of how to animate a character. Now, animating vehicles and stuff like that is really pretty simple. So I'm going to do an actual character. The principles are all the same, but characters are a little more involved. So I'm going to pull in a character here and show you how to do this. So let's create animation set for new model. And I'm going to pull my spaceman in here as soon as everything loads up. Do 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 do. That one's the one I want right there. I like working with this guy. You've probably seen him in a couple of my other videos. It's a nice simple model that's easy to work with, and so I tend to like to use it. Let's get in the motion editor. Let's select him and let's default him. That puts him in his default position. And of course, I like to have my models start off facing towards me. So you double click down here, go to the right number and highlight it and type -90. That will leave him, and hit enter, and that will have him forward facing. I also prefer using these two manipulators. I know some people find it easier to use this one, but I find it kind of confusing, so I generally don't mess with it. I prefer to use these ones. So that's just personal preference of mine. You can do whatever you want. Now, the key to animating any character is knowing what you want to see, what the animation is going to be. And so in this case, the animation is going to be him walking in and up to the camera from off camera. So in order to achieve that, we have to put him in his starting position. So I'm going to go to my work camera, and I am going to put him in position. So the best way to do that is I like using this map for practicing because it's got the grid lines on the ground here, and I can use those as a guide to kind of adjust my timing and whatnot. Okay, we're going to put him off camera over this way. Oh, probably about right there. Let me get over here and make sure I've got him lined up where I want him. Yeah, that's about where I want him, right there. Okay. So I can use the grid lines to get an idea of timing, and that then can translate into how you can do it on like a regular map or something like that. So for right now, I'm just using this so you can kind of see what I'm doing, what my thought processes are. So anyway, I have him in position where I want him, and if I double check the regular camera, yes, he's off camera, and that's what I want. So now he's in position. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Now you'll notice down here in the motion editor here, all these lines, that's all motion data. Now if you don't remove this, it can cause you problems later. And the best way and the easiest way to remove this is to right click on it and hit delete samples. Now you'll see all the motion data is gone. So you're starting with a clean slate, and that's what you want. A lot of people get on the Source Filmmaker discussion boards, and one of their primary complaints with relation to animation is, why does this keep drifting off? Why is this not moving right? Why does he lean over? There's tons of them. More than likely, it's because you didn't start with a clean slate. So this is how you start with a clean slate. Right click, delete samples. Now, you're also going to hear some complaints about using sequences. Now, Sequences, depending on the situation, uh, sometimes there's a good time to use them, and sometimes there's a bad time to use them. It depends on how realistic you want your motion to be and your animation to be. Some sequences are pretty realistic, reasonably realistic, some are not. And so, depending on what you're doing, you may have to actually animate a walk cycle or something of that nature by hand, which is a lot more time consuming. But with what I'm showing you here, it will be possible to do it as far as adjustments go. But for now, I'm going to use a sequence because this is really the easiest way to learn how to animate, is to start like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the spaceman, of course. I'm going to go down to import. And yes, I know you're animating, but you don't want animation. You want sequence. And what that's going to do is that's going to open up this window, and now I want a walk sequence. So I'm going to click on this once and hit W. And that brings up all of his walk sequences here. So I want walk all moderate. Now, there's a key step in here before you hit enter and close this. If you don't want to manually animate his root transform, click down here and click Pose Params Drive Root. And then hit open. And what that will do is that will automatically give you, as this green line, dotted line here denotes, that will automatically give you the motion that you need to work with. Now you can do this by hand, but if you've got an option like this, why not use the easiest option? So that's the easiest way to just put it in there. But there's only one problem with it, is he basically walks off into infinity. But that's okay. I'm going to show you how to fix that. So for now, go ahead and hit enter and confirm that. And now if we go back to our camera and I hit play, he walks right on across the room. But like I said, he just keeps going because he's walking off into infinity. So let's go ahead and bring him back. And what we're going to do is we're going to have him turn about midpoint here and walk towards the camera. So I'm just going to go ahead and play it till he gets to a point where he's about midway. And bang, we're going to stop. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get my work camera again, get over here where I can position myself. And we want the turn to look natural. So at this point here, what you're going to want to do is turn him 90 degrees so that he goes that way. So in order to keep from screwing everything up, you're going to move over to the edge of your motion editor till you get an icon like this right here, and you're going to click, hold, and drag it to the playhead. Get it right on the playhead and then let go. Now when you get to this point, what this means is, and I know the motion editor can be a little bit intimidating, but basically once you get it in your head that you're just manipulating points in time, it will start to make sense. Basically what we have here is everything from the playhead back is not selected and therefore is not affected. So whatever I do is only going to affect time from the playhead forward this way. And also you can see that as an indicator by the green dotted line here. Up to this point and back, there's no line. That's because that point's not selected. Only this part is. So therefore, I'm only changing from this point forward. And that's where you want to be. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get my rotation manipulator, and I'm going to turn him 90 degrees. So he is walking towards the camera. And now I'm going to switch back to my camera to make sure. Okay, he's a little off, so I'm going to have him basically walk right up to the middle of the square, of the circle right there. So Now it's kind of coming this way, so don't hit enter yet. Play your animation back and make sure it looks, it looks semi-right. Now we're just blocking this in. Now you notice he did take a sharp turn, but he walks up to the camera, and this is what we want. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter and confirm that. Now you notice when he gets up to the point here where the playhead is, he makes a really sharp turn right here. Well, we don't want that. We want him to make a nice smooth turn. So here's what we need to do. At this point right here, we need to back up just a little bit. Okay, let me go back to my work camera. You can use your previous frame reverse and frame advance here to adjust this. What we're going to do is we're going to back this up just a little bit, a couple of frames, till we get to about this point right here. Yeah, right in that neighborhood. Well, we'll just make it an even 5 seconds up here. So we're going to start at this point here, and what I'm going to do is if you get over here next to this, if you get this icon, that means you can drag your whole time selection at this point. We don't want that. What we want to do is create what's called a fall off. So at this point here, I want to move just slightly to the left until I get the back-to-back arrow like this. Then click and hold and drag a fall off to that point where your playhead is. Now, we're going to advance him now in frames till he gets into the turn, and advance a couple of frames forward. Let's make it right about there. Now, you're going to come all the way to this end and click and drag all the way up to the playhead. And drop it right there at the playhead. Now, we're going to make a fall off there. So again, get your back-to-back arrow and drag a little fall off in here. About the same as what the other one is. And we'll just drag it up to about, the 6 second mark. And then we'll grab this in the middle and we'll slide it over to the playhead so it kind of just levels everything up. So now everything's kind of even. So let's pop it back and let's play it back and see what it looks like. It should be a little bit smoother of a turn. A little bit. But this is how we're going to fix this. We're going to pull this back into the shot because you have to have your playhead in the time selection or it won't affect it. And then what I like to do is grab the smooth slider here and drag it about, 3 or 4 drags to the right. So click, drag, click, drag, click, drag. And we'll just do one more. I usually like to do about 4. That levels everything out pretty good. And let's go over here. And now we have a nice smooth, should have a nice smooth transition here. Let's just play it back right quick. And he makes a nice smooth, sharp but smooth turn. So that works for me. Go ahead and hit enter and confirm it. I'm going to go ahead and put him back to the start. Go back to my regular camera and we're going to play it back and see how it looks overall. And he walks up, makes a nice smooth turn, and walks towards the camera. So, yep, that looks good. So now I'm going to hit Control A. That selects all of my time once again. And here's a very good point. Always remember to do this. Either hit Control S and save your work, or you can come up here to File and click Save here. But either way, save often because you never know when SFM is going to take a crap on you and crash. So, with that being done, now we can play it back once again just to make sure. He takes a nice smooth walk, nice smooth turn, walks up to the camera, and he keeps going. Well, we don't want that. So here's our next stage. We need to get him to stop in the middle of the circle. So what we need to do is bring him up, about there. Actually, I probably have him back off just a little bit. Let's have him stop right about dead center. So right in about there. That's where I want him to stop. Now, again, we're going to use the motion editor. We're going to grab over here, click and drag this all the way to the playhead. Get it right on the playhead and let go. So now we've only got the time from this point on. Now what we want him to do is come to a complete stop right here. So in order to do that, what we need to do is first right click, delete samples, because this is where we want his walk animation to stop. So the best way to stop his walk animation, highlight the part that you don't want him walking in and delete samples. Now we're going to have to replace this with another animation, another sequence. So what I'm going to do is right click, import sequence, and I'm going to look for an idle sequence. So I'm going to click on there and hit I. Now I already have experience with this. If you click this idle, it screws him up. Don't ask me why. I don't know the reason for that, but there are other idle sequences in here that we can use. Personally, when I'm messing with this guy, I like idle all too. I don't really know what the difference is between these two, but either or will work. And you don't have to mess with. You can go ahead and use pose parameter drives root, but there's really not much point in it because he's just standing there anyway. So I don't even mess with it. I just go ahead and open her up, and then now I have him standing there idle. So before I hit enter, I go ahead, play her back, and let's see what it looks like. He should now make his nice smooth little turn and walk up to the camera and stop. Now he does stop kind of abruptly, but that's okay. He stops a little bit abruptly but that's all right. We can confirm this. So we're going to go ahead and confirm that he does what we want him to. Now we're going to drag a little bit of a fall off here. So I'm just going to pull it a little bit. Just a couple of frames. And then we're going to drag this back and play it back and see what it looks like. We want him to come to a smooth stop. A little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and pull it back to about the 10.5 mark. And see if he comes to a little bit better, smoother stop. Yeah, that's not bad. So now when we're at this point here, let's go ahead and drag the smooth slider. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's just my favorite number, but generally 3 or 4 usually works pretty good. And now when we play it back, he comes to a nice smooth stop. No jerkiness. So we're good there. We hit enter, and he's in position. Now we can now hit Control A, select all of our time. We now have a relatively good looking animation here. Let's just play it full back one last time to make sure it looks right. And so far so good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, about the salute. We need to have him salute. So here's what I'm going to do. Since he stops right about the 12-second mark, I'm going to go ahead and put it right there. That way he comes to a stop, and now he can do his salute maneuver. For this part, we're going to go into the graph editor. Now, in the graph editor, you move individual bones. And since we're only concerned with the right arm, these are the only ones we need to worry about. So with every animation, you need at least 2 keys. You need a start point for the motion and an end point for the motion. Now you can add keys in between for different things, but this is the main thing. 2 keys, start and a stop. So first things first, we're going to start with a start position for each of these bones. So what you want to do is select each of the bones. You're going to use all of these to position his arm. So let's just start at the top of the list with the right clavicle, and I'm going to hit M and set a keyframe for it. Then I'm going to select the upper arm. Again, M, set the start keyframe for it. And likewise, forearm, M, and hand, M. Those are the start points. Now, I want the animation to last for approximately 1 second. So I'm going to drag this up to the 13 mark, because I started at 12, so timing here. So now at the 13 point is where we move his arm and his hand where they need to go. So first off, let's get my work camera, because we're going to need to get a little bit closer and move around a little bit so we can see what we're doing. And you have to follow the bone hierarchy. Each one of these bones is parented to the next one above it. The hand is at the end of the chain. If you grab his hand and move it now, all you're going to do is stretch it all over the place. Now, you could use a rig to make this a little bit easier, but with this particular model, when I rig him, it tends to kind of pin his shoulders back, and it makes it look awkward. So rather than have to go through all the crap to readjust his shoulders and put them back where they are, I'm just going to do this with no rig. So this is just how it goes. So in order to do this without a rig, you need to understand how your bone hierarchy works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with his upper arm. So what I'm going to do is grab my rotation manipulator. You don't want to use this one. Don't use that, because this shoulder is a ball joint. It rotates. It doesn't move or swing. It rotates. So I'm going to use the rotation manipulator, and I'm going to raise his arm up. Now, if you know what a U.S. salute looks like, it's basically the upper arm should be 90 degrees roughly parallel to the ground. If you don't know what a U.S. military salute looks like, look the images up on Google. They're everywhere. So they'll show you exactly how it looks. Now, you'll notice his shoulder looks a little bit weird. And that's because his shoulder, or the clavicle, needs to move too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the clavicle, and I'm going to rotate it and adjust it so that it looks a little more right. Do not move your playhead. If you keep it where it is, you can make adjustments, and they won't mess up your overall animation. Because once you move the clavicle, it's going to move his arm up a little higher than it needs to be. So then you can readjust. So now I've got that part in position where I want. Now I need to move his forearm. So now we're going to swing his forearm in. And let's get over here to this side. Let's rotate it up a little bit. Rotate it in some more. And it's going to be just a little bit. Bring it up a little bit. Okay. Now, we are going to now move his upper arm. We're going to rotate it forward just a little bit so that it looks a little more natural. And let's rotate his forearm up just a little bit. And let's bring it just a little bit closer, like so. And let's move his forearm inward just a little bit more, just a tad. This is just to get close. Forearm, raise it up a little bit. And yes, I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran, so I do kind of know what a salute is supposed to look like. And since he's in a spacesuit, this Kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to do, but that's pretty close. I think we can live with that. Okay, clavicle. Let's rotate his clavicle inward just a little bit. And let's move his upper arm out just slightly. We want it to be close to what it should be. There we go. That's pretty close. Don't worry about the fingers for now. Fingers are quite a bit of a pain in the butt. But basically, there you go. So now if we drag this back and we play it back, he walks up to the camera, stands there for a second, and pops a salute. So, now we've got the salute, him popping the salute. Now, how about putting his arm back down? Well, this is easy. If you want him to put his arm back down, then all you've got to do is, I try to keep the spacing close so that everything looks even. So I put this at 14, the playhead at 14, and click on that to select that key, right click it, copy, don't move your playhead, just right above it, right click again and hit paste key and it'll put it right there. Then drop down to the next one, copy the key, paste the key. Then move to the next one, copy the first key, and then paste it. And finally the hand. I'm going to copy that key. Actually, I should have done something with that, but I'll fix this here in a second. I'll move to that one, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this key and paste it here. But what I should have done back here at the 13 was adjusted his hand. So at this point, what I'm going to do is adjust his hand, because actually in a salute, the hand should actually rotate so that the palm is slightly inward. So I'm kind of taking a shortcut by doing this, but yeah, as you can see, you can add keys in between other keys and then adjust them. So I'm actually rotating his hand just slightly so that it's in there. Now if I play this back, it should look right. Let me go ahead and get my camera here. He should walk up, pop his salute, and put his hand back down. Yep. Now, what if we want to hold that salute just a little bit longer? Well, then here's what you can do. I can move up to the 15-second mark and grab this key and drag it down to there and drop it. Then let's grab the forearm. We're going to drag it down here and drop it on the playhead. Make sure you get it centered right on the playhead. Drop it on the playhead. Go back to the clavicle. And I'll grab the last key and drag it down here and drop it on the playhead. There we go. Now what will happen is the salute will drag out a little bit longer when he puts his arm back down. But you see, it's still just an immediate drag in and drop. So we want him to hold his salute for a few seconds before he does that. So let's split that up just a little bit. Let's go to 14 seconds. You're going to copy this key and paste it. And then you got to do the same for each one of these. Copy the key and paste it. Like so. And finally the hand. Select, copy, and paste. Now, he should hold the salute. So now, let's just drag this back. We'll hit play. He should walk up, pop his salute, hold it for a second, and lower his hand. Now, just to make sure everything in here is looking good, let's go back to the motion editor and let's drag our smooth. Once again, about, for me personally, about 4 times. And now if I drag this back, his salute should be a little bit smoother. Walk up. Yep, pretty good. Hit enter to confirm, and there you go. Now if you play back your animation from the start using the camera, this is what you end up with. And he walks up, stops, salutes, and there you go. You've got a reasonably good animation there. It's not great, it's not perfect, but it's usable. It's reasonable. And that's really, this is all geared just for people that are just getting started with this, because I'm no prize animator myself. I'm still learning how to do this stuff myself, but these techniques seem to work best for me, and I seem to get pretty good results. There's a lot more stuff you can do. You can drop fall-offs in there, like I did for the walking animation. You can drop those in there too, in here, if you wanted, where he starts his salute from this point right here. I could hit the 12 mark, and I could grab basically highlight each one of these, and so that it affects them. Walk it up to this point and put it in here, and then drag a little fall off on it to about this point here, and then again at the end of the animation where he puts his arm back down, about here, give or take. I can grab this, I can drag this back to the playhead, and then pull a little fall off there, and then you can drag it back, and it'll kind of smooth it out a little bit. See where it doesn't look quite so robotic, it looks a little more natural. I can actually pull this back just a tad there, but it looks a little more natural, and you just pull it in there, and then of course, like I said, you can drag the smooth a couple more times just to kind of smooth it out a little bit. Play it back, and it's got a couple of fall offs in it, so hit enter and hit Control A, and there you go. I mean, that's a pretty good basic animation right there. But like I said, the way I'm doing this is I'm gearing it towards new people. So if you're somebody that's already got some pretty decent experience with animation, I'm sure you'll probably find, I don't know, maybe a half dozen things wrong with this for all I know. But for me, this is a pretty good way to get at least a semi-realistic animation that at least looks believable. And if nothing else, if you're new to animating and new to all of this stuff, it gives you somewhere to start. It gives you something to start with and to play with. So hopefully this video helps you out. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to me on my YouTube channel, or you can, which the link to my YouTube channel is on my profile, Steam profile, by the way. You can either give me a comment there, or you can find me usually lurking around the Source Filmmaker discussion boards. You can leave a post there, or you can go to my Steam profile and leave a question or a comment there. I will try to get back to you as quickly as I possibly can. I don't live on the Source Filmmaker message boards or on Steam for that matter, so It may sometimes take me a little bit to answer, but if just be patient and I will answer your question eventually. And with that, here's basic animation. You got the Captain Fuzzy, and I am out of here.